Now that we have our 4 saved views made, we can go ahead and reference them into a sheet view. So up to Models, New Model. We need a sheet view. We're working in 3D, so we should be using 3D sheet models as well. Let's give this a name. Let's just double check the settings before we go ahead. That's fine. This is fine. We do have the sheet display boundary on. Don't need a boundary for this. So let's turn that off. Everything else is fine. So we'll say OK. Here's our new sheet view. Now we don't need all 4 views, so let's just maximize view 1. Now we can reference in those 4 saved views. Let's go to References, open that up, and start by attaching a reference. I'm using this design file. We'll accept that. And we'll look at the available views that we have. Now we have the standard views here, which we don't want. They're just the standard 8 views which are available in any design file. What we do want, of course, are the saved views. Now, you might see this looking like that. Just expand the saved views list. And let's reference in the top view first. Again, let's double check the settings. 1-to-1 is fine. Everything else looks good. Now the synchronize view item here is volume only. I'll explain a bit more about that later. Everything's okay, so we'll say OK. And here comes our top view. We'll plop it into place, doesn't matter where. Now the next thing to do, of course, is add the remaining 3 views in orthographic sequence with top, front, and right side. The isometric can go here. Now I could use the same method again, but let's try something different. I'm going to open up the Save View box. I can pick the front view here and drag it onto the screen. It says you have 1 reference to attach. Please select the attachment method. Make sure that you select Interactive and say OK. The reference dialog box shows up. Logical name is front, which comes from the Save View. Everything else is fine. We'll say OK, and here comes the front view. Let's do the same thing with the right side view. So we'll drag that onto the drawing. It's called right, which is fine. We'll say OK. Here comes the right view. And the ISO. Drag that on. It's OK. ISO is good. Say OK. Here comes our isometric view. Now we need to move these in alignment. So let's start with the top view. Use the Move tool. And I'm going to align the center of that with the top of that. I'm going to press the O key, put the compass there, drag upwards, hit Enter for Smart Lock. Don't want it flopping all over the place. And then we'll data point. Do the same thing with the right view. Move the right view in alignment with the front view, somewhere over here, making sure there's enough room for dimensions and text. And the isometric view, move that over here, roughly in that space. Do that yourself, and then get back to me when you're done. Okay, we're back, and you should now see your 3 views aligned vertically and horizontally, and the isometric view somewhere about there. Now notice that our views are in hidden line display, and this is so because they are linked dynamically to the original 3D design. Now keep in mind, of course, that if you change the display mode in the 3D design, then the presentation will also change here in the sheet view, again because they're dynamically linked. Now, as I mentioned previously, you can actually change the presentation of these views if you wish. For example, let's look at, say, the top view. If you look along and look at the visible edges column, it says dynamic, which is exactly what it should be. If I click on this, a little box appears which says the visible edges are in dynamic display. Well, we know that. If I click on that, I get 2 other choices, cached and legacy. Legacy is really for older pre-SS3 drawings being imported into an SS3 file, so we don't really need that. And cached means that the settings that we have already made are now locked and will not respond to any changes in the design model. When that is selected, we can go across to this icon, which is the visible edge settings, and here you can change the display of this particular reference. We won't do that. We need that back in dynamic, but you can experiment with that if you wish. Say OK to that. Also, you can go up to this icon, which is the Set Reference Presentation. It's in hidden line, as we expected, but you can also change a few other items in here. We should take a closer look at the information in the Synchronize View box. So the volume only setting, which is pretty much default, means that you can edit the various settings shown in the body of this box, i.e. these settings up here. If you select None, this means that the settings are not synchronized with the saved view at all, and the All settings option, as you can see, turns off these options and essentially locks all of the settings to the original design model. Now, as I said, the volume only is the standard one, but under some conditions you might need one of the other two options. We'll cancel that. Now for a small experiment, see if you can change the isometric view into a presentation called Transparent with Shadows. Let me add a few more bits of information. Keep in mind that the clipping planes and clip volumes are saved with the saved views, which we'll be working with very shortly. You can check the level status, what's on, what's off, using Control-E at the keyboard. If you need to update a saved view, which is not dynamically linked, this requires that the views be reloaded using the Reference Tools Reload or Reload All actions. This is only if the views are not dynamically linked. With this all done, we're ready to start working on creating sections and adding those to this sheet model.